Good day and welcome to the Pulsecast, a space dedicated to bringing light to the stories that shape our world. I'm Makring Birungi, your host, and before we begin, I'd like to remind you to subscribe and hit notification bell so you stay informed about our deep dives into pressing issues facing the world. Today we mark a somber anniversary, and that's the first year of war in Sudan. It's 1 year today since the war broke out, and we're here to discuss the human impact of this ongoing crisis and the stories of shaken livelihoods and shattered hopes that have emerged from it. I want to take a moment to recognize the gravity of the situation and extend my deepest respect to all those that have been affected by the crisis, those who are still in the country, those who have gotten out of the country, and many, many more families that have been separated because of this war. Joining us today is Dr. Ahmed Eltigani Sidahmed, a retired international civil servant, an analyst, an expert in livestock, and most importantly, he is one of the millions of Sudanese directly affected by this war and yet closely involved in supporting people affected by the finding answers to what can bring stability back to Sudan. Welcome to Pulsecast. Let's go deep into the conversation and learn more about the situation directly from someone with first-hand experience and the stories from the ground. Dr. Ahmed, you're welcome to Pulsecast.
Thank you, Maclean.
Okay, starting off, tell me, where were you when the war started?
I was here in Rome, Italy, where I live, when in the morning of the war. Actually, I was monitoring the situation for several months and weeks, and especially the failed negotiations between the different constituencies of the Sudan, particularly the Islamist party who is controlling the army and the country, and the rapid support forces who are part of this party, but seemed that they had been in disagreement on control. So nobody, expected it to happen that fast, that really armored conflict, but people were aware that something tragic is looming on the universe of the country.
And tell us, what is your own perspective of this war 1 year on?
It's an unnecessary war for the Sudanese 40 million people. They are not part of it, but they are the most affected with it. For example, the 7 or 8 million people who are in this Khartoum area mostly were driven out of their homes, either for fear for their lives, or when the army or the rapid support forces start hitting everywhere: homes, airports, institutions, forcing people to evacuate, to run for their lives. So the impact was direct on everybody. Actually, I know in Khartoum, my family, my immediate family, my mother, my 100-year-old mother, my brother, sister. I have girls who were in the universities and the schools, and it was just a devastating situation where we had to evacuate them to safety as much as we can. And that's what happened to most of the youngsters. They went to Cairo or to Wadi Halfa or to Eastern Sudan, except my mother and my brother and sister. They stayed in Khartoum.
And talking about the impact, I would be very curious to know on the personal level, how has this year of conflict personally affected you? You've already told us about your family being scattered, displaced, and at the personal level, how has this war affected you?
At the personal level, two levels. One at the political level. I am working in an institution in Sudan trying to help the Nubians to go back. And that jeopardized a lot of our effort. At my own personal level, I lost enormously because I used to invest in Sudan so that I can take care of a very extended family. I had investment in the market, I have real estate. I had all these were translated to cash coming every month for extended family. And to my knowledge, my house, which was a medical equipment company, rented for a company, was taken by the Rapid Support Forces. And my mother and brother and sisters' homes had to be evacuated for the safety of for their safety.
And we are talking about 1 year of conflict. It's 1 year of shattered hopes. It's 1 year of shaken livelihoods. We know for sure, amid this all, there's always a particular story that stands out. Can you share with me a particular moment or event that has stayed with you throughout this time?
The most difficult part was how to evacuate my mother. She's a disabled, 101 years old, who cannot move on her own. And my younger brother and sister, they decided to stay with her because they can't leave her and leaving their children to travel out. So the months of April to August were kind of hell, trying to bring medicine to my mother, to emergency needs, to access food, was all in jeopardy. And then the armed forces, they come to the houses, they took all the cars they have, even if a car was not, with a battery intentionally, they come with their trucks and hold them and go. So they evacuated actually and ransacked the houses, rooms, everything. Besides, of course, it's not only the ransacking and taking things, but the fear. When you have people coming with Kalashnikovs, with guns, and they scare everybody and take everything and do that repeatedly, and not only to our homes but our neighbors and neighbors and neighbors. So in few days the whole area was just a deserted place, a lawless deserted place. So it was a terrible experience.
Mm-hmm. And we know for sure you've talked about displacement, your family being moved from Khartoum, the city center, to the city suburb possibly, or in the actual rural area. How has your family and community been able to adapt to the challenges brought up by this war?
One thing about Sudan is they have a very good support, community support. That's why the 7 million who fled Khartoum were internally displaced. They didn't go out of Sudan. They stayed in the villages with their relatives, with their friends. And the same thing happened to my family. There is a 2 million who had to migrate outside, whether from the west, from Chad and Darfur areas, or from the north, Egypt, or from the east, Ethiopia. Those had to go out to transport outside to seek entry into those countries in emergency. And one of the devastating views I have seen was in the road between Aswan and Cairo, the highway, you see the Sudanese scattered all along the road in a very, I mean, painful situation, definitely, without water, without food, without basic support.
And it's obviously heart-wrenching moments, and I think the difficulties that are faced by so many. I've heard of a story of this man who actually fled from Darfur because of when gunfire opened or started in his own village. He had to flee with his family, and he ends up in Chad. But when he arrives in Chad, it's a story of hunger. And his words, if I remember them so well, he says, "It hurts me that I ran away from the gunfire, and I'm ending up in a country which is actually facing hunger, and I simply don't want to die of hunger." And you know, those are stories of the people. It's the story of this one person, but a microcosm of the so many people with similar stories. Looking at how this conflict has indeed affected countless of lives, humanitarian agencies are actually warning that Sudan faces not just the world's largest displacement crisis, but also the world's largest internal displacement crisis for the children. I know for sure you have children in your family, those that you are taking care of, those that actually depended on you for their tuition and all that. Where are these children, and what are they telling you?
The grown-ups who are college level, some of them went to Cairo, and actually we are having enormous amount of difficulty to maintain them, and soon that maintenance is going to cut off. Those who scattered to the villages and to the townships facing similar things: no medicine, no food, no reliable food, and even inside Sudan, wherever the food aid was said to have been coming from different international agencies like the World Food Program, there is strong information to us that the Islamic government or army who control that part of the Sudan and the entrance of the shipments, they take that food, sell it in the black market, and use it for their own maintenance. So the food shortage, medical shortage, they are equal painful as insecurity, where there's a lot of killing and a lot of rapes, especially in Darfur, very large numbers, or in the main cities of Khartoum before people fled. So it's just an impossible situation. Nobody's ever thought even to hear something like this.
Thanks so much, Dr. Ahmed, for sharing your story. We know it's not a story that you would really imagine. It's the story of conflict. It's the kind of stories that you hear related to the kind of impact any conflict, however small or big it may be. Looking into the future, or looking forward, what are your hopes for the future of Sudan?
Today, actually, there is a meeting in Paris, where the French government and 20 foreign ministers of 20 European countries and other countries gathered with a selected number of Sudanese civilian politicians or public figures to discuss how to address the emergencies, how safe delivery of food, because hunger and famine are just around. So safe delivery of food, protection of people from further atrocities. So if these, and then at the same time to try to stop the war, to convince or find another mechanism. I don't see any mechanism myself. I see only Title VII to be implemented. And I am a dual American Sudanese, and I see my government in the United